Good morning, dear students. My name is KumarGaurav. I welcome you all today. Today we are going to discuss about the chapter number third, supplementary, the selfish giant. Okay, we are going to discuss about today it. So we have to study about the chapter number third. It is the last chapter of our syllabus of half yearly examination. So you have to also listen this properly. Look at this. In this chapter, we will find out the giant's garden was a beautiful. As you know, the name of this selfish giant. Children love to play in it. The giant, who was selfish, built a high wall around his lovely garden. Children did not enter the garden thereafter, nor did spring and summer, till the giant experienced a change of heart. So in this way we are going to study about every morning, every afternoon. In this story we are going to start from every afternoon. As they were coming from school, the children used to go play in the giant's garden. The children, we are talking about the children when they came from the school, they used to go to garden of giants and played here. It was a large, lovely garden that was attracting garden with soft green grass. Here and there over the grass stood beautiful flowers like stars, and there were 12 peach trees that in the springtime broke out into delicate blossoms of pink and pearl. In the autumn bore rich fruit. The birds sat on the trees and sang so sweetly that the children used to stop their games in order to listen to them. How happy we are here, they cried to each other. One day the giant came back. He had been to visit his friend, the Cornish ogre, had stayed with him for 7 years. Means the name of giant's friend, Cornish ogre, he had been to visit his friend. That time had stayed with him for 7 years. When he arrived, he saw the children playing in the garden. That time, when he came, he started to cry and said, "What are you doing here, everyone?" After listening that, children ran away from there. So in this chapter, in this story, the selfish giant who owned a garden. In the garden, there are a lot of children who used to play and run. But when selfish giant came from his friend's home, he cried, "Everyone, what are you doing here?" When he cried, everyone ran from there. Okay, when we talk about Cornish, Cornish means a giant of Cornwall. It was in UK, and ogre means in legends and fairy stories. Next we have my own garden is my own garden. You can see the picture. In the picture, the giant was saying that my own garden is my own garden. Anyone can understand that I will allow nobody to play in it but myself. So he built a high wall all around it, put up a notice board. There was a notice board for everyone trespassers will be prosecuted. Means who want to enter in that property, in that land without permission will be prosecuted. Means will be punished. He was a very selfish child. The poor children had now here to play. They tried to play on the road, but the road was very dusty and full of hard stones, and they did not like it. They used to wander around the high walls when their lessons were over and talk about the beautiful garden inside. But they were helpless to go to garden. How happy we are there, they said to each other. Every children used to say to each other how happy we were there in the garden, but this time we are not able to go to garden. Then the spring came and all over the country there are little blossoms and little birds. Only in the garden of the selfish giant it was still winter. The birds did not care to sing in it as no there were no children. You can see that the birds did not care to sing because there were no any children. That's why it was very faint. It was faintless. Sorry, you can say that only in the garden of the selfish giant it was still winter. The trees forgot to blossom. There is no any development. Once a beautiful flower put its head out from the grass, but when it saw the notice board, it was so sorry for the children that it slipped back into the garden again, went off to sleep. The only people who were pleased were the snow and the frost. Means when there were no children, there were only two people, snow and frost. Spring has forgotten this garden, they cried. So we will live here all the year round. The snow covered the trees silver, and they invited the north wind to stay with them. He came. He was wrapped in furs, and he rode all day about the garden. In this way, there was no any kind of development in the garden of giants because he never allowed any children to come here and to play. Play blew the pots down. This is a delightful spot, he said. He must ask Hail on a visit. This time, Hail was there, and so the hail came. Every day for 3 hours he rattled on the roof of the castle till he broke most of the slats, and then he ran round and round the garden as fast as he could go. He was dressed in grey. His breath was like ice. I cannot understand why the spring is so late in coming. Selfish giant was very confused why the spring is coming late. So he sat at the window and looked out his cold white garden. This time the garden was cold and white. I hope there will be a change in the weather. But the spring never came, nor the summer. The autumn gave golden fruit to every garden, but to the giant's garden she gave none. He is too selfish, she said. So it was always winter there, the north wind and the hail, the frost, the snow danced about through the trees. One morning the giant was lying awake awake in bed, and when he heard some lovely music, it sounded so sweet to his ears that he thought it must be the king's musicians passing by. It was really one a little linnet singing outside his window. Linnet, it is a bird who always used to sing, but it was so long since he had heard a bird singing in his garden, it seemed to him to be the most beautiful music in the world. Then the hail stopped and dancing over his head, and the north wind ceased roaring, and a delicious perfume came to him through the open casement. I believe the spring has come at last. Giant was thinking that. He jumped out of bed and looked out, and when he looked out, he saw something was different, means all the children were playing there. That's why Linnet, the bird who was singing there. Okay, students, in this way we have discussed about the first part. In the first part, there are some questions you can find out. Why is the giant called selfish? And on one occasion, the children said, "How happy we are." Later, they say, "How happy we are there." What are they referring in both the cases? And when spring came, it was still winter in the garden. What does winter stand for or indicate here? Winter has been presented like a story with its own characters and their activities. Describe the story in your own words. Was the giant happy and sad over the state of the garden? What effect did the linnet's song have over hail and north wind? So, in this way, first part we have completed. In the first part, we have seen that there was the garden of selfish giant, but when he was not there, every children used to go to there in that garden and used to play. That time the garden was very enjoyable and very blossom, you can say that. But when he came suddenly from the UK, you can say that he scolded everyone, every children there, and put the notice board there. In this way, no one was there, and garden was still in winter. There was no any kind of spring season. So in this way, he was feeling very sad. But one day, he suddenly listened the song of a linnet. He understood the spring has come, but when he saw a most wonderful sight. In the second part, we can study. To celebrate the return of the children, trees covered themselves with buds and blossoms. The giant was delighted to see his friends back, especially a little boy whom he loved dearly. The little boy soon disappeared, only to return much later. So, in this way, in the second part, we are going to discuss about the most wonderful sight. Through a little hole in the wall, the children had crept in and they were sitting in the branches of the trees. In every tree that he could see, there was a little child, and the trees were so glad to have the children back again, and they had covered themselves with blossoms. They were waving their arms gently, means everyone was playing there. They were just hanging from the branches of the trees above the children's head. the birds flying about and twittering the delight. The flowers were looking up through the green grass and laughing. It was a lovely scene. Only in one corner it was still winter. It was the farthest corner of the garden. In it was standing a little boy. He was so small that he could not reach up the branches of the tree, and he was wandering all around it, crying bitterly. The poor tree was still covered with frost and snow, and north wind was blowing and roaring about it. Tree said, "Climb up, little boy," as if tree was saying that, "Little boy, climb up." It bent its branches down as low as it could, but the boy was too tiny, and the giant's heart melted as he looked out. "How selfish I have been," he said. "Now I know why the spring would not come here. I will put that the poor little boy on the top of the tree, and then I will knock down the wall. My garden shall be children's playground forever and ever." He was really very sorry for what he had done. When he had turned notice board, that time children were not allowed to come in, and the winter has come in the garden. But this time when he saw coming all the children, and because of them the garden was now full of happiness, full of spring season, so he thought he was really felt sorry for what he had done. Okay, so in this way, so he crept downstairs and opened the front door quite softly and went out into the garden. But when the children saw him, they were so frightened and they all ran away. The garden became winter again. Only the little boy did not run, for his eyes were so full of tears. He did not see the giant coming, and the giant stole up behind him, took him gently in his hands, and put him up into the tree, and the tree broke at once into blossom. As the little boy it was on the tree, with the help of giants, that tree it was blossomed. The birds came and sang on it. The little boy stretched out his two arms and flung them around the giant's neck and kissed him. And the other children, when they saw that the giant was not wicked any longer, came running. When everyone saw the giant was not scolding anyone, then everyone running back. And with them came the spring. "It's your garden now, little children," Giant said. He took a great axe and knocked down the wall, and when the people were going to market at 12 o'clock, they found the giant playing with the children in the most beautiful garden they had ever seen. All day long they played, and in the evening they came to the giant to bid him goodbye. "But where is your little companion?" one day the giant asked. The boy I put into tree." Giant loved him the best because he had kissed him. "We don't know," answered the children. "He has gone away." But this time Giant was waiting for him. "You must tell him to be sure come tomorrow." But the children said they did not know where he lived. had never seen him before. The giant felt very sad. Every afternoon, when school was over, the children came and played with the giant, but the little boy whom the giant loved was never seen again. The giant was very kind to all the children, yet he longed for his little friend. Means he wished for his little friend, often spoke of him. How I would like to see him, he used to say. Years went in this way, the days gone. The giant grew very old and feeble, very weak. He could not play about any more, so he sat in a huge armchair and watched the children at their games and admired his garden. I have many beautiful flowers, he said, but the children are the most beautiful flowers of all. He understood the meaning of. One winter morning he looked out of his window as he was dressing. He did not hate the winter now, for he knew that it was merely the spring asleep, that the flowers were resting. Suddenly he rubbed his eyes in wonder and looked and looked. It suddenly was a marvelous sight. In the farthest corner of the garden was a tree quite covered with lovely with blossoms. Its branches were golden and silver fruit hang down from them, and underneath it stood the little boy he had loved. He again saw the little boy. Downstairs ran the giant in great joy, and out into the garden. He hastened across the grass and came near to the child, and when he came quite close, his face grew red with anger. He said, "Who had dared to wound thee?" For on the palms of child's hands were the prints of two nails, and the prints of two nails were on the little feet. Who had dared to wound thee? Who punished you? Giant cried. Tell me, that I may take my big sword and slay him. You tell me who did it. Nay, answered child, nay, no one. But these are the wounds of love. Who art you? Who are you? A strange awe fell on him. He knelt before the little child. The little child smiled on Giant and said to him, You let me play once in the garden. Today you shall come with me to my garden, which is paradise. You have to come with me. That is paradise, that is heaven. When the children ran in that afternoon, they found that the giant lying dead under the tree, all covered with white blossoms. In this way, this story is over, and we find out that how the giant converted himself into a good man. Oscar Wilde noted this story. So you have to students listen this story again and again and try to make yourself sure to understand about it. The giant saw a most wonderful sight. What did he see? You have to find out what did he realize on seeing it. Okay. Why was it still winter in one corner of the garden? Describe the first meeting of the little boy and giant. Describe the second meeting after a long interval. The giant lay dead and all covered with white blossoms. What does this sentence indicate about all one selfish giant? So in this way we have discussed about the story of selfish giant. Okay, I hope you understood it. See you again. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.